much for tuning in. And Nair, thank you so much for, again, for extending the invitation. On the line, I have my colleague, Catherine Reed, who can speak a little bit more about the Education Specialist Program at Aspire. And so without further ado, I am just excited to introduce Aspire Public Schools as a charter school network that was founded in 1998 with the intention of supporting students from underserved and underrepresented backgrounds to ultimately have access to higher education institutions, as well as possibilities post-graduation. And so I'm happy to just share a little bit more about how we work, the feel of our organization, if you will, and our impact. And so the screen or the slide that you're seeing now is just a little bit about of our story, again, founded in 1998. And over the years, we have scaled it to serve over 17,000 scholars. We're located in the Bay Area, the Central Valley, and the LA regions. And so I was born and raised in Long Beach. LA is very close to my heart. And so Southgate, LA, and Huntington Park are the specific areas that Aspire serves. And so as we're transitioning into our vision, mission, and values, most recently we launched a values redesign journey. And so what that means is that prior to our values that I'll articulate a little later in this slide, we had a set of values that were more customer service oriented, and we felt that over time that value did not reflect the community environment that we wanted to continue cultivating. We found that community, families, scholars are actively involved in the learning process and in shaping that learning environment for scholars. So we found that in that moment, it was time for us to re-examine what we valued. But nonetheless, our vision has remained the same. And we ultimately want to pave that pathway for our scholars to earn a college degree and pursue their own vision of success in career and in life. And so while we want our students to ultimately enroll in that 4-year track, we understand that our students may not, may opt for a 2-year transfer route, for example. And so we want to ultimately meet every student where they are and support them with their post-secondary plans, always with a college focus. But we know that that every scholar is different and brings a vision of their life to the table as well, and we want to take that into account. And so how we do this, our mission ultimately is working collaboratively with our teammates and families to develop processes and develop a space for our students, again, to feel cultivated and feel safe. We are very focused on developing our teammates as well. And so be it a novice educator who is in their first year teaching to someone who might be interested in moving into leadership roles. We have a sequence designed to meet the needs of every teammate. And I can speak to that a little later in the presentation. But we really believe that that education opens doors, that it is a pathway toward self-actualization and ultimately opening as many options and making dreams a possibility for our scholars. And so our values, as I had mentioned earlier, newly designed, are rooted in well-being, prioritizing the well-being of every scholar, family member, and teammate, cultivating a culture of belonging, establishing community partnerships, promoting self-determination and joy. And I think this, I think most accurately encompasses our current state within the organization, where we're very eager to come together and in conversation to innovate and make recommendations, look at data and look at the gaps in that data where we can make a greater impact, and all in the service of promoting equity, specifically racial equity across our system. And so I want to introduce the folks who lead the work. So we have top leadership that then that focuses on organizational strategy, but focus on specific functions within the organization. So we have the Chief Executive Officer, Mala Batra. I'm going to slowly slide down. So Mala Batra. We have Janine Hawk, who is our Chief Financial Officer. Murray Cha Caswell, who manages our operations. Jen Garcia, who was a principal prior to, she was a principal with Aspire Public Schools and now a Chief Academic Officer. We have Anupam Mishra, who manages people operations, and Bess Kennedy with fundraising and advancement. And lastly, Daniel Soleimani, who is our Chief of Staff. And I want to just very briefly mention that Jen Garcia is spearheading our distance learning program at the moment. A lot of our questions have been centered around how we've been able to transition or manage this the distance learning structure in light of COVID-19. And just want to mention that Jen Garcia has done an amazing job with her team, the education team, to leverage existing technologies. So we've already introduced Google Classroom and Clever into our instruction through our blended learning model. And we're able to leverage that to transition into a distance learning model fully in a matter of weeks. And I think, again, it's a Herculean effort, and by no means fully implemented, if you will, but we're almost there. I think the biggest progress that we've made is being able to fundraise and order technology to deliver for to our families, so that that technology and our applications and websites are all the more accessible for our scholars. So that's it's been a huge undertaking, to say the least. And so, as I mentioned earlier, our communities are in 3 key regions, serving 17,000 scholars. Many of them will be the first in their families to attend college. And I think this is very close to my heart, at least for me personally, because I was the first in my family to graduate from college. And so this work is very, again, it's that really speaks to on a personal level. And what I love about Aspire specifically is that we infuse social emotional learning into the curriculum. And I think that's something that sets us apart from any other organization, in that every student receives at least 1 hour of instruction that consists of learning the self, learning their responses to, things that might happen on the playground, for example, and being able to articulate those emotions and channel them in a way that's constructive. And so in addition to that, we offer other services that support that development that I can speak to a little later. Just for now, I want to give some metrics around how many students we enroll and so on. And so each school on average enrolls 400 students. We might see an increase in that. Some schools might enroll about 600 or so. But overall, we have 1,000 students in our network. 79% of our scholars qualify for free or reduced lunch. And so that just gives you a sense of the need the financial need that our scholars typically face, and also gives us a sense of how we are then able to support them as they transition from their senior year in high school to that milestone step, which is college enrollment. 17% of our scholars identify as English language learners or identify English as their second language. 9% of our scholars benefit from special education support and resources. And we currently have a wait list of 8,300 students. And so our model for enrollment is on a first come, first serve basis. So we don't really hold a lottery. I think it really, it's dependent on space. If a family chooses us, we want to be sure that we have that space and capacity to support and don't want to turn anyone away. And so that's why we've opened our doors again on a first come, first serve basis. And as space becomes available, then our scholars have a place with us. Okay. And so now to more narrowly introduce each region. The Bay Area region is spearheaded by Nicole Williams Browning, our superintendent, who joined Aspire about 2 years ago. We have Jennifer Green serving as an associate superintendent, and I think her story is very much, I think it's sort of is representative of what we envision for each teammate at Aspire, that if they have the commitment to ultimately become a leader themselves or see themselves in that track, we want to open those opportunities and develop accordingly. And so Jennifer Green started with us as a resident, as a teacher resident, taught for about 6 years in our schools, and then ultimately stepped into a leadership role, I believe as an AP and then principal for Monarch Academy in the Bay Area. And then most recently transitioned into an associate superintendent role. And I think, again, this is just a track that, that we encourage every teammate to vision themselves into. And again, maybe a lot of our teammates might feel maybe that track isn't necessarily for us, but we more than encourage it. And so with that, we serve 11 schools in the Bay Area. We have 7 in Oakland, 2 in Richmond, and 2 in East Palo Alto, with a total of 9 elementary and 2 secondary schools. And so you can kind of see the metrics here, nearly 4,600 students enrolled in our schools, 630 teammates. And I think one of the key characteristics of the Bay Area is that our teams work very closely in collaboration to close the achievement gap. And I think it's one of the places where I've seen the collaboration really flourish. I've attended some of the regional professional development days, and it's just really nice to see people coming together, whether it's role-alike with role-alike PD, for example, or spaces, creating spaces for other math teachers to sort of exchange practice, and or taking a step back and having data step backs in during a school day for our what is it, lower grade teachers to look at literacy rates and where the gaps are, so that they're able to pivot accordingly in support of our students. And so I think, again, these are just some of the live examples that I've seen in my years at Aspire, and so I think, again, it's just a very hands-on region, to say the least. I think a quote by Superintendent Williams Browning, I think really just says it, articulates it best, being able to work collaboratively with teammates across schools and in service of the whole child. And I think with love, empathy, and grace and skill, I think really sums up the Bay Area as again being this blend of empathy, of personal personalizing interaction or personalizing development, but also doing so with great skill and thoughtfulness. And so with that, as you might surmise, our regions are very similar, but they're also quite different. They sort of take shape and in service of the community that they're in. And so the Central Valley region is slightly different and serves about 14 schools in 3 cities. We're located in Stockton, Modesto, and Sacramento. We've enrolled nearly 6,000 students, so 5,830 to be exact. We are joined by 830 teammates. And I think one of the things that they do that characterizes the region is that they have a fully implemented blended learning model. And again, as I mentioned earlier, integrating media to supplement instruction. And that, again, that's been such a huge kind of relief, if you will, knowing that we've had to pivot very quickly in light of COVID-19. And I think Superintendent Solina is also very charismatic. He posts online, very social media friendly, and I think he's someone that I think has a balance in, as you might read in the quote, has a balance of working with collaboratively with staff, regional leaders, but also having that component of joy and play, and really giving his team the flexibility to be creative in their work, so that our students feel engaged and that they're able to thrive in school and beyond. And so I think I want to just also introduce Kat Ellison, who's our superintendent, and she is just great at, I think one thing I really admire about her is that she's great at sitting down with teammates to develop plans of action for anyone who might be interested in leadership roles. So she's a great mentor, she's a great coach, offers thoughtful feedback, and I think despite the fact that we are a network of 36 schools, that might feel quite large, right? We're the largest organization or charter school organization in California. We still are very, again, community rooted and really value that one-on-one development and interaction. And so as I transition, I think the LA region is a fantastic example of that. This is the region that sees the highest retention rates, and we see great community involvement as well, spearheaded by Stephen Bean and Javier Cabra. He was a principal with us for quite some time, and then transitioned into an associate superintendent role. And the LA region serves 11 schools with about 4,264 students, and we have over 700 teammates. And I think just to speak to the philosophy within the LA region, the leaders have done a great job at developing curriculum and practices that encourage high standards and expectations, and really offer learning opportunities that are personalized, that are very focused on student need and desire. And I think, again, that kind of alludes to the community involvement and the ways in which the region listens to the community and what they need, what they want to see more of, and then they're able to integrate that into the classroom experience, if you will. And so, again, that speaks volumes because, again, they've had success with retention, success with cultivating our classified staff into teachers, and so that's something that we've seen every year, and it seems to be a proven model within that region. and so I think as you're getting to know Aspire a little bit more, and the spirit of Aspire is to um, to support and to develop every student, every teammate to, into their full potential. Our impact speaks to that, and so we have, I think, we have more elementary schools and secondary schools. So you might see that our numbers are conservative at this time. And I think, again, this is because we are being very thoughtful about how we support and lead our seniors toward that milestone. And so our impact is reflected on in the numbers. So 630 students in last year's Aspire class was ultimately graduated, and 84% matriculated in, again, last year into a college of their choice. And we saw 5,398 college applications submitted. And this is no small feat because every student gets one-on-one guidance right around fall. Members from the home office have the opportunity, and the home office is the central office that supports all schools. So this is your HR teams, your data teams, etc. And so members of the home office get the opportunity to take on a mentee, a senior mentee, where we get to know our seniors more on a personal level, support them with their statements, with finding scholarships, and getting them to that finish line. And so it is a year-round process, that senior year, very intensive. And these efforts are led by our post-secondary success team. And they're currently looking to implement college partnerships. So they're identifying campuses across California with high graduation rates, specialized programs, and generous financial aid packages that would support students within campuses. So we don't want to just enroll students into college. We want them to successfully graduate and complete their 4 years with a bachelor's degree. And so we know that that there's more to that to that journey, and community support within the campus, as well as a generous financial aid package, are one of the key factors that determine whether a student persists or whether a student doesn't. And so we're looking at, we're currently in the works, I think with Pitzer College, for example, we're looking into Southern California campuses to partner with. And then our other program, Aspire Higher program, is a pilot that we're launching this summer. We might have to think about how we do this virtually, because it's likely going to be the cadence for the rest of the year, if you will. And so the goal for this program is to connect our scholars with selective colleges and engage them in a rigorous application process. We offer support and financial advice for our families as they're preparing for the transition. And so this sort of gives you a glance into our priorities and initiatives org-wide. And our first initiative, and I think I want to make sure that I give my colleague Kat space to share more insight into the special education model. But our main priority at this time is to support our special education department and our students through an asset-based lens. We have an all-inclusive model. So our students are learning with their classmates, and we might push and pull for assessments and for one-on-one instruction. And so before I move forward with the rest of the initiatives, I want to just give Kat some airtime and see if she has anything to add.
Thanks. I'm muting. Kayla, actually, Marilu did ask a question around professional development.
Mhm.
in the notes. Did you want to go into that a little bit?
Sure, yeah. Let me see. I'm not able to see, there we are, the chat right here. Great question. And I will definitely answer that question with, it's coming in the next few slides. Yes, great question. We have a new teacher development program, but yeah, I can definitely give more insight.
Perfect.
Mhm.
So I will move quickly through special education. Are there anybody in special education on the line? No worries. You can definitely share with your friends. But our special education program is one that is very close to our heart because Aspire is an organization that does want to make sure that we are meeting the needs of all students. And as we all know, all students do not learn the same and they don't learn in the same way. So our instructional program is designed with that in mind. Of course, we use data to create personalized learning plans, and that's to ensure that we're providing, equitable approaches to make sure that we are, in fact, meeting the needs of the students. We use response to intervention. Is that something anybody's heard before, familiar with? It's a tiered approach where you really want to give the least restrictive accommodations first, and then continue going through that process if in fact you need to move a child through more progressive support. So the idea, of course, is to ensure that we're delivering instruction in that least restrictive environment, but we do have things in place such as our school psychologists, our occupational therapists, all the various counselors that will help to meet the needs of the students if in fact more support is needed.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
Okay, thanks. In terms of special education, the staff definitely do get professional development on the intervention strategies that are going to be tailored for the needs of our students. And that's to include English learners as well. And I did also just want to point out in terms of special education that we do involve we want to make sure, and we do make sure that our parents or guardians are part of the process, which we can understand can sometimes be difficult when it comes to meetings, but the IEP meetings, but we definitely go above and beyond to make sure that we are either working before school or after school, meeting them maybe in a different location, but definitely ensuring that we are involving the parent or guardian in every step of the way, and making sure that they actually understand what their child is getting in the services that we offer. In terms of the secondary program, which goes to what Marilu was talking about in terms of graduation, we definitely include a collaboration with our college guidance counselors, and special ed post-secondary transitional plans are things that we start to put in place early on in a student's high school career. And there are professional learning communities that the teachers are a part of. And these communities, I think Marley is going to go in more detail, but the communities are, school-based communities, region-based communities, and then Aspire-wide communities, depending on the need. And that was the last information that I did want to share pertaining to our special education program.
Thank you, Kat. Yes, and I think that's a great transition into the math initiative. We most recently launched a networked improvement community, and so what that means is that we've identified instructors across the each within each region, within each school, to develop a professional space for, or a community, a learning community, if you will, for teachers to engage and to analyze trends. And they meet, I believe, every quarter, and they basically engage in design thinking, implementing innovative instructional practices. And I think this is, it's a twofold service. It's a way to tap into new and engaging ways to deliver instruction, but it also supports teammates who might vision themselves in a leadership role in a few years. And so this is something that's very new. But the idea here is to create change ideas, if you will. And change ideas are recommendations, and it's a buzzword that gets other instructors thinking about their own practice and how they can implement new ways to engage students, to maybe sharpen their culturally responsive instruction, or I think math is a very difficult subject for our students to grasp for many reasons. I think one being self-esteem, other, or maybe I think ultimately might have difficulty or challenges with grasping concepts. And so I think our teachers are often discussing those ideas and discussing those the root issues or the root causes for certain performance trends, and then they're able to mitigate by again just engaging in discussion and rooted in the data again. And so similarly, our multi-language learner development program is underway, and we envision this program to be integrated into the instruction, and so into the instruction of our scholars. And so what that means is that because we have scholars who identify as multi-language learners, we want to make sure that we meet them where they are, and that we create an inclusive program that supports their literacy development and language acquisition. And so I think it's designed after the math initiative, in that there is also a task force who is assigned to envision an org-wide program, again, that supports the needs of all students. And so I think I can't really speak to the granularity of that program because it's a very new initiative, but we found that that this is one of the key priorities that we want to focus on. And again, it's actually not an exhaustive list. It's not limited to these key components, but we found that these are the ones to focus on for the upcoming year. And then lastly, but certainly not least, one of our key initiatives is to support our Black scholars. And the way that we do that is by elevating their achievement and celebrating their achievements, be it in attendance or in academics, or just being their amazing and beautiful selves, and with all the gifts that they bring to the community. And I think this is in large part to cultivate and like deepen the relationship with our scholars, our Black scholars, who I think can ultimately, I think any scholar can benefit from feeling seen, and I think we do that with intention, and promoting Black excellence and celebrating that. And so I think this kind of speaks to the Aspire-wide culture in creating an environment of diversity and inclusion. We have an equity-centered vision. And I think the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council serves to more systemically interrupt inequitable patterns. And with that, and so as you can see, any inequitable pattern that you've seen in terms of, that might target our most vulnerable students. And you see here that this is not, again, not an exhaustive list, and students may not, we don't want to box students into specific categories either. But we know that our students come with a range of experiences, and we want to create systemically a space to interrupt and reverse patterns. And so with that, another tenet of our culture, I think, as I kind of keep reiterating, is our professional development. And so I think I want to skip a little bit, I want to skip around a little bit, because I want to get to the question on the chat box. And how we do this is we've launched our new teacher induction program. And so it's a 2-year program that supports new teachers. We've, I think the first year of doing anything, specifically the first year as a teacher, is one that's memorable, to say the least. And so we created a program that consists of a reflective assessment. There are these assessment forms and reflection forms that a new teacher submits, I believe, bi-weekly. And they get assigned with a mentor or a coach. Every single coach and mentor is an Aspire educator. And they take the journey together for 2 years to develop the knowledge and build on the skills, build on the abilities that you already bring to the table. And so this is all in line with the California standards for the teaching profession. And so this program is ultimately to see our teachers through the induction process, and it is a free program. And so I think that's kind of very noteworthy. Kind of gives you, again, in a nutshell, how we specifically support our new teachers. And it's, again, through that reflection and assessment, mentorship, coaching, and really building on your vision of the teacher that you want to be, building on that skill set and building on the experience that you already have. And so I think, to summarize, our another sort of tenet of our culture is that we emphasize our socio-emotional development learning. And one thing I wanted to highlight was that our multi-tiered system of supports is a system that some of our schools have adapted to reduce suspension rates. And so what this, I think, to speak to what Kat was, or build on what Kat was describing in the education specialist model, in the tiered approach, it's a very similar approach. And so what that means is that any student that might exhibit a trauma response. So it's a trauma-informed service, in that as we're identifying students who might need additional supports due to any traumatic event that might affect their learning, we then tier our students based on need. And so from mild to severe, and depending on those tiers, our students can get a range of services, whether it's one-on-one attention and additional academic support, to counseling services built into this school system, or referrals to a community service. And we track the progress of each student, and over time scale back the support as we see improvement. And so that just kind of describes in a nutshell the MTSS supports that we offer. And then I actually want to take time to play a video. It's about a 3-minute video, but it goes by really quickly. And I think I've shared so much about the spirit of Aspire to the point that I'm feeling like it might be that I might be redundant. and so, I think a better way to express the spirit of Aspire is to just let it kind of unfold. And this is a really nice video that kind of captures that. And so. All right. I believe that there may have been some issues with the sound. I do apologize for that. I'm not exactly sure what or why that happened, but I hope that that gives you an idea of our community engagement and how eager our families and teammates are to come together and reimagine a learning environment that's supportive and safe for our students. And so with that, I wanted to address a question around SEL and professional development. And I think someone asked, do teachers get training in this area? And yes, we definitely have a sequence for that. Most recently, our community partner in the Bay Area, Seneca, which is a counseling agency and fully wraparound service. They came and spoke to our teachers and counselors. And this was a full day event. So that's actually a nice thing about our school too, that it's quite flexible. We might designate some days off for professional development. And so, yes, one of these will be, or this specific theme or topic will be covered in one of those professional development days. But yes, Seneca did just like I think it was a trauma-informed professional development in how to support our students in the classroom with restorative practice approaches. And so it's a kind of a very broad subject, because I think it can, I think it gets down to the situation and the individual. Ultimately, it narrows down to that. But I think they offer really great training and resources. And in addition to that, we have our student services director who recently joined us from in Santa Clara County, I believe. And he is also creating and updating our the scope of the socio-emotional development training for for every teammate within our schools. And so, as I continue talking about support, just one of the key things to kind of take away is that our coaching and our PD is differentiated and designed with the teammate in mind. And I think one of the sort of testaments testimonies that I've heard at Aspire is that our coaching model is very lateral, and we want to engage with teammates to identify the areas that that we can build on. And so I think there is, a top-down coaching model that might be effective. There might be many practices that work, but I think what works really well for us is that engagement and that lateral approach, and wanting to integrate what our teammates want to learn more of. And so I kind of spoke a little bit about the new teacher induction program launched this past summer, and we already have 176 teachers in the induction process, which is something to celebrate. And then lastly, I have another very brief video that kind of touches on the ways in which Aspire supports our teammates, more specifically the education specialists at Aspire. And after the video, I want to hand over the mic, if you will, to Kat to see if she has anything to add. And I know this is her wheelhouse. If you are interested in any education specialist positions, she would be your contact person. But without any further ado, I hope you can hear this one. I heightened the volume a little just in the hopes that you can get the information.
Like for you to start following us, but just to Google us in the different, social medias, because we do have teaching staff, administrative staff, like people just, communicating with each other about their day-to-day activities and the things that are going on in their schools specifically. And a lot of times that just gives a more, raw feel of who we are. Can I put the link to this here in the comments? Perfect. And did you guys have any other questions that you could think of at the moment? Okay. We really appreciate the time you took to learn a bit more about Aspire.
Hi, I have a question.
Yes.
I'm not sure if Aspire Public Schools, does it fall under the loan forgiveness area? Because I'm looking at school, I'd like to work in schools that would fall within that area or jurisdiction per se.
I was pausing because I don't know the answer to that. This is Kat. I don't know if Mari Lou knows. That's definitely something we should look in because that's a great way to get, you know, through a program. I will say Aspire does work with the Alder teacher residency program. So we do support interns in that way. And then also internally through Aspire, we want to encourage and support our instructional support staff to obtain their education specialist credential. So we do offer a sponsorship program through Alliant, where Aspire does pay for that particular program. But the loan forgiveness, I don't have that answer.
Okay.
So I might be able to help. So public
Thanks.
service loan forgiveness program only works with institutions that are not-for-profit 501 organizations.
Oh, well then, yes. Perfect.
So,
Then we would.
So then Aspire would fall under that category.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And actually, I have a question. So we learned a lot about the culture of Aspire and the first year teacher retention. And I'm curious about what are some of the qualities or qualifications of a successful candidate or successful teacher that really strives in that environment?
For me, for coming from a special education perspective, you know, definitely the things that we're looking for is someone that, you know, is passionate and patient in working with our students that do need the necessary supports, and understanding that, you know, again, that we're all different and we all learn in different ways. So someone that can, you know, look at a child and respect those differences. A lot, you know, we know that teachers know how to teach. So a lot of it is what, you know, you would call the soft skills, I guess, in terms of what I'm looking for from a special educator's perspective.
Mm-hmm. And also, so, you know, we have a variety of candidates. Some of them have many, many years of experience before they start to get their master's program. And some of them are, don't have actually paid positions or paid work experiences. And, you know, this is probably will be one of their first actual jobs. So what recommendations do you have for each category?
So you have candidates, you said that they have experience. Can you repeat the question?
Some of them have great experience, like long experiences before they come in and start their master's program. So they do have an actual work experience in the field. So those are different types of candidates, but also we have some that did not have an actual work experience in the schools, and this probably will be their first job application.
Gotcha.
So what recommendations or advice do you have for these two groups for application purposes?
I got you. So the bare requirements are just, you know, meeting the credentials. We are open to actually working with teachers that have 0 experience and teachers that have 30+ years experience. Once they come into Aspire, there is a teacher induction program, but even that might look a little different for the teacher that is coming in with more experience. There is general professional development for all the teachers to learn about Aspire, but then it's individualized based on the needs of teachers that are coming in with the various levels of experience.
Mhm.
But we work with, and I hope I'm answering, and we employ teachers coming in with all levels of experience, as
Yeah.
long as they meet the state requirements.
And you do have professional development for all levels of teacher, obviously, right?
Yes, yep.
And I think Kayla had a question, or she raised her hand. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yep.
I had a quick question. So some of us are still waiting for our TPA results, which is like the final step to getting our credential. When would be the last deadline, you would say, or should we wait before we apply until we get recommended for a credential? Or what do you recommend? Should we get started on our application? Just because some of us are still waiting on our scores, and when would be the last?
I know. So what we have been doing, which is great, we have a credentials department. We have some staff that actually, so once you have the opportunity to go through the application, submitting to myself or Mari Lou, we're the ones that look at that. We then do flag credentials. They're not gonna say, you don't meet it. They're actually gonna help you through that process, let you know what is new coming out of CDC, because we're all still waiting about testing right now. So they're also paying attention to the CDC, but then also giving teachers some possible solutions. Some teachers are able to get like an emergency, there's different options. So they do work with everybody to see what we can do to help you through that process.
Yes, I think to chime in and to add to that, our credential analyst team can best guide you with what step or supplemental credential you might need, or temporary credential that you might need to be able to essentially be authorized to teach. And we have had cases in which our teachers start without their ed TPA and then have to, and that's okay. We offer that another sort of pathway and guidance so that our teachers have that time to take the test. And I think, yes, in light of COVID-19, a lot of things are uncertain, and test taking centers are I think have been put to a halt. And so I wouldn't hesitate on submitting your application. I would make note of that so that we're able to then route you to our team. But yeah, don't let that discourage you from applying. And I think to add to the previous question, as far as what do we look for, or what should a first-year teacher expect versus a more experienced teacher who might have more experience in the education field. I think in the screening process, we ask our candidates what grade level they want to work with, the location that they want, their location preference. And I think those questions are to feel out what the best match would be. We have availability across the board in K through 12. And so we're asking more or less about your preferences, because we want to match you with the role that feels right to you. And I think if you are able to speak to why, for example, if I'm a candidate, I prefer working with second grade students. If I have a clear why I want to work with second grade students, articulating that I think is helpful for us to, as we are communicating with our hiring partners, to start thinking about ways to match you and to kind of integrate you into that community. So we're already thinking in that interview process where what community might might be the right fit for you. And so I think the interview process too is a two-way interview. It's a conversation, and we encourage you to ask those questions as well. What our communities look like, what our community culture is, because I think I was able to speak about the culture at large, but again, every community takes on their own identity. And so I think we want you to be happy working where you'll end up ultimately. And so asking those questions up front, right? Where, like, for example, what does that specific school do to engage families? What specific processes exist to communicate with our families? And so, yeah, that's just general information. Any other questions?
I did just send the link to our page that just has all of our various roles. During this time, virtual interviews are partly just your oral interview, question and answer, and either a demo that you may have already completed can be submitted, or we would do artifacts, just, lesson plan. Maybe you have like a teaching binder. So just various artifacts to be able to discuss from. Those two pieces are what we're using now as part of the process for consideration. So you wouldn't do, I actually do have some principals, Marilu. I know I have a principal that did have, like, her team was the students on Zoom, and they did have teachers, teaching like a 10-15 minute lesson. Most of my principals, though, are asking if they already have a demo or just requiring the artifacts.
Like a lesson plan or any communications that you might have sent out to parents, for example. If you have that on file, we might be asking to supplement that. And so prior to the interview, you'll have more details as to what to expect and what to bring, or what to prepare for. And we also have tools to offer that I can share maybe with Nari after the call, for how to successfully complete your virtual interview. And yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. I'll be happy to provide that as an additional resources along with this recorded presentation.
Definitely. Any other questions?
Maybe we should take one final question and a wrap up. Or any other points or final notes to students who are not probably here?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I will leave both our students in attendance and students who might see this after is to really to consider us if anyone is interested in really seeing the impact and the difference come to life. We strive to work with our families to tap into their sense of empowerment, to support our students to engage and to offer their voice, be it in key decisions like selecting their new school leader, for example, or in just general meetings where policies or changes are being discussed. And so if that sounds like a place you want to flourish and be a part of, I more than welcome you and encourage you to apply, and can't wait to review your application.
Well, thank you very much for your time and everyone else for jumping in, asking questions, and your presence. If you have further questions, you know where to find information about Aspire schools, and I hope that you will consider all your options that you have. Thank you very much, and thank you for considering USC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody take care. Bye.
Thank you.